Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back?
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah, you can see the padding coming out.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be wrong, but I'm like, I look like the glove open.
We do this round and go and get that one. We're going to do this round and get...
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Backchat TV. Today, we're going to get straight into the controversy. Boxing wouldn't be boxing without controversy. This time, it's Terence Crawford who's involved in a glove-gate situation. So basically what happened with Terence Crawford in his fight with David AVANESYAN in the 5th round, I believe it was noted, or noticed, I should say, that his gloves were torn. Both gloves, which is quite unusual. Now, the thing is, I've heard a lot of people say that if gloves are really brand new, then this kind of damage should never happen. And that's not true, you know. End of the day, anything can become damaged, you know. Gloves, even if they're brand new, they're not being used to take out hot food out of an oven, like mittens. They're being used to punch each other as hard as you can. So, you know, it doesn't matter how durable they are, it is possible that gloves can become damaged. But they are made in a way that limits this damage. And that's why you don't see gloves becoming damaged that much in bouts. In the grand scheme of things, the amount of fights that happen, you rarely actually see this kind of damage to the gloves. Now, it can happen, like I said, but if it was to happen, it's more likely that maybe it happened to one glove. But in Terence Crawford's case, it happened to both gloves, which obviously makes us think that could there be more to it? You know, could it be that the gloves were tampered with? Were some of the, cushioning taken out, and that's the reason why it became weaker? This is the kind of idea, this is the kind of thing that people probably going to come up with. So I want to try to, you know, cover this and look at both angles. Despite the thumbnail at the beginning, I'm not calling Terence Crawford guilty. I actually don't believe he's guilty of cheating or anything. I just think it's coincidence that, you know, his gloves tore. That's what I personally think. But I have to remove my personal view and actually look at some of the errors that I think have made this situation worse for Terence Crawford. So the first thing I think is Terence Crawford's team. Kind of a procedural error, I think. Terence Crawford's team should have had a spare pair of gloves. Spare pair, yeah? Anything could happen to the first pair, which something did happen. You know, it's reasonable to have another pair of gloves, which they did have. So, you know, if they had another pair of gloves, as soon as the damage was noticed, why weren't these gloves changed? That's the first question. The second issue to consider was the referee. So the referee had noticed that Terence Crawford's gloves were torn. I think it was in the 5th round, because the stoppage was in the 6th round, wasn't it? So in the 5th round, it had been noticed by the referee that the gloves were torn. She took Terence Crawford over to where the officials were sitting and showed them the damage. The officials looked kind of dumbfounded. They didn't know what to do about it. And then she makes a recommendation and she says, oh, these gloves are torn. We'll let this round continue and then we'll change them in the next round. So, you know, I'm not really blaming her, but that recommendation, I don't think it was the best thing. I think she should have basically said, you know, both gloves are considerably torn. He cannot continue with gloves like this. And his team should have worked pretty fast to change the gloves. Bring the new ones in, change the gloves, and then they could have continued. It's the only way. You can't continue a fight with damaged gloves. So that was a mistake by the referee. Could say a rookie mistake, but there has been referees in the past that have noticed that there's some damage to gloves, especially Tyson Fury comes to mind, and the fight has continued. So it's not like, you know, it's unprecedented, but at the same time, Terence Crawford's gloves were quite considerably torn, and what should have happened is they should have said, bring in the new gloves, which they had, change them as quick as possible. But maybe she didn't want to delay the fight. For whatever reason, she says, we'll let this fight continue and then we'll change the gloves in the next round. Or later on or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but she says, we'll change it later on, or we'll change it we'll let this round continue. She says something like that. I think this was in the 6th round, actually, because Terence Crawford comes back out and then he knocks him out. There was no next round. This is the problem. So I can clearly see Avanesyan having a case. He may come back and say, you know, I've never seen in my life, in my time of boxing, both gloves torn and, you know, the fighter having such significant power. I just think there was something fishy about it. He could easily say that the fight should be called a no contest because of the damage to the gloves. And, you know, he may have a case. And this is all because these gloves were not changed when they were noticed that they were damaged. So a lot of things can come from this. And it's unfortunate because my personal view is that Terence Crawford is completely innocent. You know, he's just a fighter. He gets in the ring and he fights. And that's what he did. But, you know, it depends on how far this is going to go. All I'm trying to say is Avanesyan has a case. He can clearly say that, you know, under the rules, damage to the gloves, you know, probably is grounds for the fight being called off. It obviously depends on the extent of the damage and obviously on under which circumstances did the damage occur. Were there any damage noticed to the gloves prior to the fight? Was it a factory error? You know, there's a few things that are going to come into it. But what I'm trying to say is Avanesyan can easily bring up a case. And if he does bring up a case, then all of these things will be investigated. And, you know, it will be a shame if Terence Crawford's win, impressive win, is kind of taken away from him. You know, I just wouldn't like to see that happen. I do think Terence Crawford is the best fighter, if not one of the best fighters in the world. And, you know, I never like to see somebody using certain things against somebody, you know. But Avanesyan, as I know, hasn't come out with anything yet. But, you know, we obviously have time for this to progress, for this issue to progress, I should say. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think it's feasible that Terence Crawford could be cheating? Do you think it's likely that both gloves can become ripped in the way that they were? Do you think the gloves were loaded? Or do you think that Terence Crawford had, well, his team or somebody had taken out some of the padding out of the gloves and this is what made them weaker? Let me know what you think. It's definitely a controversial topic. I mean, if you do think that Terence Crawford was cheating in his fight with David AVANESYAN, then how long has he been cheating? How long has he been loading the gloves, taking out the padding? You would, if we're going down this road, you would think to yourself that if he's going to take the padding out to fight someone like David AVANESYAN, then he's definitely taken the padding out to fight higher tier fighters like Sean Porter, Kell Brook. Has he been cheating all this time? You know, it can go on and on. Like I said, I will reiterate the point. My personal view, 100%, I don't think Terence Crawford is cheating. I think that he does have the natural power. I think it was just a coincidence that they tore. The fact that both of them tore is kind of fishy, but I personally just think that it was a coincidence that it happened. But you can, I'm playing devil's advocate, you can clearly see that there is a case that, you know, this kind of damage doesn't normally happen, and it certainly doesn't normally happen to both gloves that are brand new. And a lot of questions, basically. A lot of questions, not so many answers so far. But let me know what you think. Like I said before, are you of the belief that Terence Crawford cheated? Do you think that he's innocent? And do you think that the whole thing should just be ignored because it was just a coincidence? Feel free to let me know your comments in the comment section below. I'm on to the next one.
Man, guess who's back? I said, guess who's back?
If you enjoyed the video today, comment, like, share, criticize, anything at all. I'd love to hear what you've got to say. And of course, as always, don't forget, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.